Hello, welcome to the Stockyard Industrial Lead. I'm Eric Miller, and today I'm going to show you how I paint the Kodachrome paint scheme, the SPSF Southern Pacific Santa Fe. And we're going to go with the B23-S7 here that I've started up. And I've finished adding all the details. I'll show you some close-up photos of it. And we're going to, this is a really complicated paint scheme to paint, but I think it's worth it in the end. I really like it. We're going to do the Reefer Gray as a primer, then Santa Fe Yellow, then I'm going to do another primer over the yellow overspray, then the red, because the red is a pretty actually bright kind of translucent color, so you need the primer for that, and then finally the black. And meanwhile we'll paint the truck silver. So lots of colors in this one, but like I said, I think it's well worth it in the end, and so I'll just go through all the steps and show it to you. So first of all, I'll show you the details on this Super 7. So hopefully you've seen the video where I basically show you how I kit bash this Super 7 using Atlas, mostly Atlas B40-8 parts and also B32-8WH parts. But basically what I did here is, first of all, with the handrails, I cut this down on either side, and then I actually just kind of melted it together so that it stays as one solid piece. Added air conditioner, some grab irons, obviously sunshades, grab irons back here. I just tried to find some parts from a lot of random other things that I had, so that's why I like this is BNSF orange. And I decided not to do plow in the front because this is just going to be a local unit, so it doesn't see any mainline service, so I just wanted to keep the plows off and kept this pretty simple. I'll add MU cables later, and then obviously an air horn on top, a little antenna, nothing too fancy, again because of its local service. So those are basically the details I added. So that's what it looks like now. Let's give it a coat of primer gray, and I'll check back with you after that. Alright, so here's what it looks like with the primer done. Just got a good nice even coat of that SP letter gray all over the locomotive. And this is one of the things I like to do because now it actually looks like everything is the same color and uniform, so it's kind of nice to see how it actually looks coming together, and stuff doesn't look super weird with the white styrene sticking out and all that. So next up we're going to do the Santa Fe Yellow here, and we're going to focus on just the front part here where the war bonnet is, or the yellow bonnet is, and then the back, and then the sides as well. And then that's the stuff, then after we paint the yellow, we'll tape it over and then do the primer again, and then the red. So that's what's next. We'll check in after that. Now here we are after the yellow coat, the Santa Fe Yellow, and as you can see I tried to highlight just the front, the ends, and the sides, and there's the other side there. And then after this we get to begin the very fun part, and I say that with entire sarcasm, of taping off basically the yellow bonnet, or the war bonnet, for the Kodachrome. It's a bit of a painful job to do, but basically what I do is I cut out blue painter's tape. I'll make a curve here, and then I'll do another kind of curve here and tape off this yellow part. This will become red, and then all this part of the long hood will become red. And I have to keep in mind that we want the SPSF lettering is going to fill up this entire area, so we want to keep it as short as possible over here and on this side as well. So we'll try to fit that, and then also keeping in mind that the top of the walkway around the locomotive, as well as the ends, the pilots, are all going to be black. So, and the top will be black as well. So that's what's coming up next. We'll tape that off. I'm going to obviously take the handrails off now that they're painted and done for, so we can take those off, then put them back on when we're completely done, and then tape off the yellow. Then we can do the primer again, so that otherwise what happens if you don't do the primer again, basically the red is going to look kind of weird against this yellow. It's going to be very light and kind of weird looking, so we want to do that primer again so that we have the real full red color there, and then we just blast it with primer, blast it with the red, and then we can cover up the red and do the black. So after masking this part, it's all downhill from here, but this is going to be the tough part. So I'll show you what it looks like after the masking and before we paint the primer again. So here's what the model looks like after some masking, and this kind of shows you basically the curve that I cut out for the war bonnet, and I just basically what I did is I put a piece of tape, folded it together, drew the curve as best I could, actually cut it out with scissors, and then peeled it back open, and that way I have the same curve on each side. And so now there should be plenty of room for the SPSF lettering. We're going to have to run into the radiator section a little bit just because the Super 7 is so tiny compared to a lot of the other Kodachromes. I don't think it's small enough though to get the switcher SPSF sized treatment, so we'll go with the bigger size. But yeah, everything else is taped up pretty well. Guaranteed we're going to have to do a little bit of touch-up hand painting with the brush later, but this is pretty good for now. And so yeah, we'll hit it with the primer, do the red. I'll show you after what it looks like after the red, and then the nice thing is taping off the red is super easy compared to this step here. So, and then we've got our cab and handrails off the model, and so those will stay set until after we're done with the decals. So, well, we'll use this for the decals obviously, but the handrails will stay off until we're done with that. So, okay, next up another coat of gray, and then red. So this is after the Southern Pacific Scarlet Red coat here, and pretty simple. We just paint the side of the long hood. That's essentially it. I mean, a little bit of detail in here and there, but otherwise that's it. So now all we have to do is tape over the sides, and then we paint the black, and the black is one of the easiest colors in the world because it covers everything. So yeah, we don't have much left to do, so this is great. Almost done. So here we have our nearly finished SPSF B23-S7. So we've got all the colors on it. As you can see, the masking went pretty well. I'm not going to have a whole lot of touch-up painting, just a little bit here and there. It's really hard to get some of these corners, but it looks pretty good overall. Obviously, this is where the handrails were, and when they go back, they'll cover up those spots. But yeah, it looks pretty good. We're basically ready for decals. Just have to give this a nice gloss coat. Then we can start the decal work, and I'll plan to do another video on that. But this is basically the Kodachrome paint scheme. It's, like I said, it's a lot of work to do. It kind of annoys me because I have to do all the colors and the primer and whatnot. But I think it's very rewarding. I really like this scheme because it's bright and visible. I like how the cab is yellow to keep the crew cool. And then we got the silver trucks, which I painted. They're outside still drying, which are good for inspecting the trucks. Nice and bright colors there. And so just and then you got the dark colors where you get the most dirt and grime. So it just makes a lot of sense. I think it's, in my opinion, it's the best paint scheme out there. And really wish the merger would have happened, because then we would have had this really nice scheme on a lot more locomotives. A lot of people give it a hard time. Like for example, in this Trains magazine, they give it a bad name, but it's like, if it wasn't for that SPSF merger, we wouldn't have this really cool paint scheme. Another thing, this magazine got it wrong on page 36 here. They said that the letters are to have huge SFSP, was obviously SPSF. But and they're like, oh, it wasn't a good idea. It was really presumptuous for the two railroads to start painting this scheme. But I mean, come on, if they didn't start doing this, we wouldn't have this awesome paint scheme out there. So so that's the way I look at it. I think it's really cool that they started doing this, and I'm really glad they did. So, and it's kind of neat for model railroaders to say, hey, SPSF still exists, and you got some of the stuff that's out there, like the SPSF boxcars, which I've shown on this channel before. You can have the SPSF exist on your model railroad, so it's kind of cool. But that's basically how I do the paint scheme, and hope to follow up here in a couple weeks with another video on the decals, and then I'll ultimately get this B23-S7 in service. So thanks for tuning in and watching, and hope it was helpful. Definitely want to hear your comments, especially if you're going to tackle a Kodachrome project yourself. I've seen other people out there do it, so it's not completely impossible, and I'm sure everybody's got, or not everybody, but there's probably different takes on how to do it, but this is how I do it. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll catch you next week.